Welcome back, everyone. Hope you're doing amazing. This is the pagan necropolis under Vatican City. We've done tons of toldinstone videos. This is just another brick in the wall. This is gonna be fun. Just because obviously Rome was paganistic for the longest time until Christendom really opened its doors. Well, I guess Christendom's always had their doors open for Rome, but Rome rejected that and persecuted for a long, long time Christians. But now, let's dive into Toldinstone's pagan necropolis under Vatican City. Let's go.
Since the Renaissance, it had been known that there was a pagan cemetery beneath St. Peter's Basilica. In 1574, workmen had accidentally broken through the vaulted ceiling of an ancient mausoleum.
And that's usually how stuff is found. We've seen things like this all across Rome, London as well, with some Roman walls and so forth. But it's usually when they're tearing up foundation or when they are remodeling or doing something in basements, so forth. That's when you see the underlying foundations of other buildings, and you uncover things that you never thought was there.
A torch dropped into the interior had revealed shimmering gold mosaics
Whoa.
and a floor carpeted with bones. A half-century later, an elaborate marble sarcophagus had come to light, whose epitaph, which encouraged passers-by to sample the pleasures of wine and women.
Friends who read this, heed what I say. Wherever you are, mix the wine, bind the garland around your bow, and drink. Nor should you refrain from the pleasures of love with beautiful women. When death comes, everything will be consumed by earth and fire.
Had so horrified Vatican authorities that they smashed the lid and threw the pieces into the Tiber.
Yeah, because the pleasures are not really a sought after mantra for the Catholic Church,
But by 1939,
unless it. It's funny. I just realized what I said, and I know there's so many deep rooted conspiracies and contradictions to that in the Catholic world. It is what it is.
when Pope Pius XII decided to lower the floor of the grottos under St. Peter's, these reports had been almost forgotten. Nobody expected the workmen to find more than a few medieval burials. Almost immediately, however, they struck the roof of a pagan mausoleum. Soon they uncovered another and another, a whole necropolis from the height of the Roman Empire, 30 feet beneath the basilica's floor. The Pope authorized the clearance of the largest possible area that could be safely excavated. Despite delays caused by crumbling foundations, masses of stone-hard packed rubble, and a gushing subterranean stream, work advanced steadily in the direction of the high altar, revealing more and more of the Vatican's pre-Christian history.
And that's just a shame, ain't it, to think about. Not that they're uncovering this, that's awesome. It's a shame that there's probably way more examples than just this out there. Who knows what's underneath your house? But really, what's underneath most public buildings used to probably be more public buildings. And as erosion and time and this is mainly for like Europe and Asia and so forth. But this could be true anywhere. But there's really there'll be a time in the future where things like LiDAR and other advanced technology are going to pave way for understanding what's under your house. And then you'll see excavation teams come out and either preserve it or take it, or I just see that in the future. Some really cool personalized LiDAR opportunities.
2,000 years ago, the Vatican lay on the suburban fringe of ancient Rome. It was dominated by a hill, the Mons Vaticanus, whose slopes, now crowned by the Apostolic Palace,
Kind of fun. That Mons Palatinus is what you said?
Vatican lay on the suburban fringe of ancient Rome. It was dominated by a hill, the Mons Vaticanus.
Goodness. trying to see where he's talking about. I can't see it. I'm blind. I'm blind. Yeah, I don't see it.
whose slopes now
Oh, it's way over there. Thank you.
crowned by the Apostolic Palace.
That's why it's called the Vatican. Oh, yeah, because it was on a hill. That's all. I know the history of the Vatican now. I remember.
Were mantled with scraggly vineyards and pockmarked by clay pits. This insalubrious area, notorious for its swarming mosquitoes, had only two noteworthy features. One was a temple of the eastern goddess Cybele. The other was a string of imperial states along the banks of the Tiber. Parts of the imperial properties closest to the river were landscaped into gardens. Other sections seem to have included a practice track for charioteers and at least one artificial pool for naval combats.
Wow.
But the dominant structure was a large circus, begun by Caligula and completed by Nero. Though smaller than the Circus Maximus, it boasted a towering granite obelisk brought by barge from Alexandria.
That's cool.
Over the course of the 2nd and 3rd centuries, an necropolis developed between the Circus of Nero and a road that ran a short distance to the north. Near the Tiber, several gargantuan tombs rose in the shadow of Hadrian's mausoleum. One of these, a towering pyramid known as the Meta Romuli, survived until the Renaissance, when it was demolished for its stone.
I think Renaissance maps, just like this one, really give us the idea of the bridge between antiquity to modern. And that's a duh statement. But it's so interesting, right? Because you could look at this, and then if you put like a paved over map for the modern, whether it be like a Google map or something, you could start to find where these buildings pre talked about, where they might be if they were to be under some structures.
Most of the tombs in the necropolis, however, were small mausoleums. Built of brick-faced concrete, they stood in neat rows by the roadside.
And there's, I can't remember what it was. It probably was this channel. Like, you can walk and see these old mausoleums. It's like a back road of Rome.
Facades washed with plaster and trimmed with terracotta. Inside, their walls and ceilings were richly decorated, some with mosaics, others with figured stucco, nearly all with frescoes. These represented a wide range of subjects, scenes from Greek myth, personifications of the morning and evening stars, even a portrait of the Egyptian god Horus. Each mausoleum remained in use for decades, and some...
It's interesting that the Egyptian god would be there, but now it is the Eastern. It's an interesting one. It's very interesting.
Some received burials for well over a century. The families that owned them belonged to the Roman equivalent of the upper middle class. Many of the men interred there had been functionaries in the imperial bureaucracy. A remarkable number were either freedmen or their descendants. Virtually all, at first, seem to have been pagan. But from the 3rd century onward, a growing minority were Christian, apparently attracted by a small monument in the heart of the Vatican necropolis. That monument consisted of 3 niches cut into a red painted wall. The lowest niche, beneath the surface of the surrounding pavement, was covered by a perforated lid. The upper 2 niches were framed by miniature columns. This was almost certainly the structure described by a Roman priest named Gaius around the turn of the 3rd century as the trophy of the Apostle Peter, who had, according to an ancient tradition, been executed in the Circus of Nero. Both the trophy of Gaius and the red wall behind it were constructed during the late 2nd century. Not long after, the red wall began to crack, and a buttress, later covered with Christian graffiti, was built on one side of the trophy. Later, an additional buttress was added on the other side, and a railing was built across the front. Later still, the small courtyard facing the trophy was paved. Otherwise, the trophy of Gaius and the rest of the Vatican necropolis changed little until Constantine, the first Christian emperor, decided to build a church of unprecedented size and grandeur directly over the site.
Nice.
The emperor insisted that the apse of his new basilica would be centered on the trophy of Gaius. This was problematic, both because the terrain around the monument sloped steeply, and because Roman law strictly prohibited the violation of cemeteries. Constantine, however, was undeterred.
Huh.
The emperor's workmen cut deep into the Mons Vaticanus
Dang, that's really crazy. You can see like the terrain underneath it too, yeah.
and dumped the spoil, more than 1,000,000 cubic feet of earth, over the base of the hill to create a level site. In the process, they obliterated the upper part of the Vatican necropolis. The portion on the lower slopes, however, was buried and so preserved within the colossal foundations of the new basilica.
That's cool. So it's basically like a what do you call it? Like a corridor underneath that's just been almost, it's like there's a lot of houses that have this as well, where you have like a crawl space. It's almost like a giant crawl space.
Constantine's church took decades to build. When complete, it was a spectacular structure, with long ranks of marble columns marching the length of its gargantuan nave. The focal point of the whole vast building was the apse, where the once humble trophy of Gaius stood, now encased in a shrine of precious marble and porphyry, and crowned by a canopy with spiraling columns. At the end of the 6th century, Pope Gregory I constructed a raised platform around Constantine's marble shrine. Over the shrine, directly on top of the trophy of Gaius, he built a new high altar. A crypt with a semicircular passage was excavated beneath the new altar platform, from which pilgrims could access a niche cut into the lower portion of Constantine's shrine.
Mm.
Despite various embellishments and a destructive raid by Muslim pirates in the 9th century, this arrangement remained basically intact until the Renaissance, when Old St. Peter's was torn down to make room for the modern basilica.
Look, I learn something new every day. Those Muslim pirates in Rome in the 800s? Huh? Huh?
The medieval platform and crypt were dismantled, and a new high altar was erected on top of Gregory's. At the base of this altar, the confessio, a space recessed beneath the level of the new basilica's floor, was constructed. The finishing touch was Bernini's baldacchino, which unwittingly mirrored the canopy Constantine had set up over the trophy of Gaius 13 centuries before. Now, at last, we can return to Pope Pius XII's excavations under the floor of St. Peter's. When the archaeologists
When is I'm not very chronologically educated in popes. When was Pope Pius in office? In office.
reached the area beneath the high altar, they discovered Gregory's altar, Constantine's shrine, and the trophy of Gaius superimposed on one another,
Wow.
all more or less intact. They also discovered part of the red wall against which the trophy of Gaius had been built. The trophy of Gaius, as mentioned earlier, consisted of 3 niches, 2 above the ground, 1 below. Behind the subterranean niche, the foundations of the red wall bent upward, and in a recess just beneath, the excavators found the bones of an elderly man with a powerful physique. They conjectured that the builders of the red wall had stumbled upon a body which was identified with the Apostle Peter. Whether the bones were in fact Peter's is still debated.
Yeah, there's no real way that we could DNA that, could we?
There were certainly burials in the
Unless, did Peter have offspring? See, I have no idea. Did Peter have any offspring? If not, yeah, there's no chance unless we could somehow chronologically detect DNA of maybe his maybe a sibling or a parent or something like that. But quite unfortunately, it's not that easy.
area before the mausoleums of the Vatican necropolis were built. Several inhumation graves, at least one apparently dating to the 1st century, were discovered in the immediate vicinity of the trophy of Gaius.
Okay.
Equally significant is the fact that the site has been associated with St. Peter since at least the 2nd century. Constantine, at least, had no doubt that he was building his great basilica over the apostles' tomb.
Too far off. You know, I think there's like some conjecture if Peter was real. I know if theologically that's a different conversation. But historically, archaeologically, there's not proof definitively, I don't think yet. I think we've went over this. But nevertheless, we can be optimistic. thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate you guys so much. This is just another, like I said, another brick in the wall when it comes to the toldinstone videos. You learn something new every day, especially, didn't know the Muslim pirates invaded Rome in the 800s, or raided instead of invaded. But the pagan necropolis under the Vatican City, you never know what's underneath your house, so go dig now with permits. I'll see you guys next time. Peace out, and bye-bye.